3.5 months. Now I have to wait another 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, another 6 weeks at least.
6 weeks.
Minimum. But we have Zoom, Baruch Hashem, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's just get a heads up of what's going here. We're going to end up with an argument between the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud, and explain their argument first on the halachic, profoundly legal level, and then subsequent deeper levels. What is the essential argument? So let's see the text over here without repeating it all again. Okay, if you go to the first page, page 170, at the very bottom, the Gemara concludes. Okay, so let's just refresh our memory. We're talking here about the obligation of a guarantor. So, the halacha is that if the guarantor is, because of his word, the whole loan takes place, then a kinyan is not required. The whole issue here is when, in a certain case, the requisition of a kinyan. So we explained last week the word kinyan means to acquire. And that is, in essence, a person's words not obligate him financially. The truth is, even putting down money is also a question whether if a person put down money already and didn't actually acquire the object, whether he acquired it already, and does the seller, for example, have the right to sell it to somebody else since the person who put down the money didn't make a kinyan. In essence, the person who put down the money did not acquire it yet, but our sages say that it's improper to nullify a sale once a person has put down money. But at any rate, the point being, we need to grasp this, that just a verbal commitment, people say things, and they can mean it facetiously, they can mean it in an exaggerated way, and it doesn't mean that it obligates them. When do we know? The point of the kinyan is that the person is expressing a serious commitment. It's a real commitment, and that is through the act of a kinyan. There's many kinds of kinyanim. The most common kinyan is the kinyan agav sudur, which means a kinyan through the agency of a kerchief, which, as I mentioned, everybody here did for the ksuba. What happens is the person who makes the obligation acquires something. Because I got something and I'm acquiring it, so he's demonstrating his seriousness. He actually has taken something, and in exchange of that, it's called the exchange. In exchange of that, I'm giving my obligation. So that's a demonstrative expression of his actual intention, because he went so far as to agree to acquire something. That's why you pick up that kerchief. When you do that, when the chassan did that, he acquired the kerchief, and with that acquisition, the exchange, he gave his monetary obligation as outlined in the ksuba. Hundreds of laws and nuance related to all of this, but I hope we grasp the general idea. And the general idea is, why is a kinyan required? A kinyan is required so that we, the court, are sure that the person is demonstrating his obligation, his liability. If he doesn't make a kinyan, again, it's called an asmachta. It could be said facetiously, it could be said just to make himself look good. Perhaps he's considering words themselves do not obligate. Now the question is, as we learned last week, I'm just repeating it, or nothing I'm saying now is new. We said this all last week, which we'll continue to review, and that is as follows. So the obligation, the question under discussion is the obligation of the guarantor. Now, so there are two people. Here a kinyan is not required according to all opinions, and that is, the guarantor says to Reuven and Shimon are discussing it. Shimon wants to borrow money from Reuven. Reuven's not sure whether he should give or not. And then Levi says, Reuven, lend him the money, I'll guarantee. And then Reuven goes along and gives the money. In such a case, no kinyan is required. And we'll see why. all agree. The question is, what if the guarantor appears after the loan has been contracted? Appears. He didn't say anything. And he's there watching this whole thing, and the contract is drawn up, and Reuven lends Shimon, and then Levi says, and I'm guaranteeing this. Is this, how do we, does this require a kinyan or not? So look at the bottom of the Gemara, of the page of 170. The Gemara concludes, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Shmuel. In the case of, as remember the story last week, Chanuk v'kana miyadai. In the case of the strangulation, what's the story? As you remember, we looked in the Mishnah at what happens in a case where somebody encounters two people arguing, and one person, the lender, is coercing the borrower figuratively or literally strangling him. Pay me the money you owe me. So Levi, witnessed all of this, says, leave him, I'll pay it. Is a kinyan required then? Would he have to take an object belonging to Levi, lift it up, and with this, like the classic kinyan, he is now obligated, or his words are enough. Now in this case, look at the bottom of the page 170, again we're just reviewing. Chanuk v'kana miyadai. In the case of strangulation, mishtabed. So the conclusion is that if he made a kinyan, v'kana miyadai, even in this case of the strangulation, here too, the guarantor must make a kinyan. Mechlal, from this we derive, the orav ba'alm b'leboy kinyan. But if the orav appears and there before, now because of him the loan takes place, no kinyan is required. Turn the page. Vilchus of the halacha is orav b'shas matan mois leboy, top of the page 171. Orav b'shas matan mois leboy kinyan, a guarantor, when at the very beginning, when the money is being loaned and says, lend him, I'll pay, and then the loan takes place, that doesn't require a kinyan. Achamatan mois, but after money has been given already, and he came afterwards, boy kinyan requires a kinyan, even in the case we just described, the case of the strangulation. When the guy says, let go, and I'll pay, in order to make him financially obligated, he has to actually make a kinyan, acquire something of this exchange, this kinyan exchange that we described before. We're clear? That's the opinion of who? Of the Bavli. Okay, so the Bavli said, this is Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, across the board, and once the loan is made, across the board, the orav to be obligated, the guarantor has to make a kinyan. Then we see he's not just saying it to make himself look good or facetiously or wishful thinking, or just for image purposes, whatever the motivation might be. He has to make a kinyan. Then with this, he acquired something, he gave his obligation in exchange. That's true in all cases, even in the strangulation case. However, again, before the loan is contracted, no kinyan is required. Now, the Jerusalem Talmud has a different conclusion. To go through all of the whole text, we'll never get out of it. So I want you to turn, because there's different ways to understand the Jerusalem Talmud. So let's go to page 172. Top of the left-hand column, Kloimar, second line. Anybody has the place? 172, left-hand column. This is the truth is, because learn the Jerusalem Talmud, because it's pretty straightforward. Let's learn the Jerusalem Talmud. Let's learn the text inside. So page 171. The Talmud at Yerushalmi Ne'emosham, paragraph base, just what we just finished off. Everybody has the place? 171, chapter 2. Talmud Yerushalmi Ne'emosham, but the Jerusalem Talmud has a different conclusion on this subject. It's the same Mishnah, but the Gemara is different, as is often the case. Rabbi Yosef b'shem Rabbi Yochanan Omar. Rabbi Yosef said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Afal Pisha kills Rabbi Shmuel as Ben Nanas, even though Rabbi Shmuel praised Ben Nanas, you recall that Ben Nanas said, was very, the extreme view, and said, that a king is required in all cases. So at any rate, so he praised him. Nonetheless, Al Midrash killed, so he only praised him for his academic ability. Aval Eina Halacha ke Ben Nanas, the halacha is not like Ben Nanas. Ben Nanas says that in none of these cases in no cases is the Artiv liable unless it's at the outset of the loan. Shimon bar Bava, no matter what, kinyan or not. Shimon bar Bava v'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Abba chonok halachak Rabbi Shmuel. The halacha is like Rabbi Shmuel, even in the case of what? Of the strangulation, and that is that the Artiv is in fact obligated. However, the Jerusalem Talmud makes no mention of what? Of a kinyan. Makes no mention of a kinyan like the Babylonian Talmud did. So therefore, turn the page to 172, we're left with 172, left-hand column at the top, Kloimer. But Talmud Yerushalmi Maskonihi. So the Jerusalem Talmud, right, 172 left-hand column. The Jerusalem Talmud, the conclusion is Shaloi kibet Talmud Bavli, unlike the Babylonian Talmud, should be in Chanuk. In the case of the strangulation, so according to the Jerusalem Talmud, if the person, Levi, comes along and says, leave him, I'll pay, Mishtabet Gambla Leikinyan. It's all in Rabbi Shmuel. They're arguing in Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. The Jerusalem Talmud says he obligates himself even without a kinyan. Whereas according to the Babylonian Talmud quoted earlier, in the case of the strangulation, it needs to make a kinyan. So that's where they come down. They come down in a case where this is the argument: the loan is being contracted, the person is being threatened, and someone comes along and says, "I'll pay." According to the Jerusalem Talmud, he's obligated the Artiv even without making a kinyan, and according to the Babylonian Talmud, he has to back it up with a kinyan. Otherwise, we don't obligate him to pay. Now we're going to get to the heart of the matter. So this argument between the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud, if a guarantor needs to make a kinyan after the loan has already been contracted, this is bound up in an argument. The root of it is machlekes kol as a general argument. Now we're going to get into beautiful depth here. What exactly, how do we define the obligation of a guarantor? What is the legal underpinnings, and it's relevant in practical terms, for a guarantor's obligation? There's two ways to view it. Let's see it. Chapter 3. Being in the Artiv b'shas matan mois. Now, in the case where the Artiv is there before the money is given. So, and the Artiv says, the guarantor says to Reuven, lend him, I'll pay. Why is he obligated then? So, Rashi says, with this benefit that Reuven believes Levi, he received something. He received the trust of Reuven, Gomar o mishtabed nafshe. That's why he obligates himself. He got something. Again, the whole point of the kinyan is you got something that obligates you to give. What did he get here? Which is therefore, we don't need a kinyan, because the whole point of the kinyan is you get something and you give. What did he get here? What he gets here is the trust that on my word, Reuven lent, and that obligates him. In brackets, the guarantor obligates himself. Mishtabed means it literally enslaves, binds himself to pay up because of the benefit that he gets, shamalva, that the lender Maimele believes in. The Rebbe continues with Pashtas Kavani here. So what's the intent of Rashi? At the simple level, mispar poskim, as we see from the words of a number of poskim, of halachic codifiers, sha'ano shala orev mu'uvedes hiyoyse meheiman, that the fact that the guarantor is believed, this benefit maspika is enough, it's tangible enough, in order to respond and cause him to mean these words that he's saying and actually obligate himself. That's how real that benefit is. We're clear? That's one explanation, yeah? But then Muki Yosef says a different explanation. The end of page 173 now. His commentary at the end of the tractate, the Gabi Order B'Shas Matan Mois. So there he talks about again the classic case at the outset where he says lend the money. So why is he liable to pay the guarantor? Why is no kinyan required? What's he getting here? He's not getting anything. So what is it? An interesting position. He kiven dal piv hoitzi ma'osav mitachas yoda. It's because of his word that Reuven is giving the money. He caused his words were so powerful that it caused what? Reuven to say, okay, here's the $100. It's because he affected this, his words have caused such an effect, that obligates him. You can't be facetious. You can't say maybe you're just saying it to make himself look like he's a wonderful person. He was just thinking about the idea, perhaps. You're on your word, somebody did something. So that's enough to obligate. Further explanation, further elaboration. The Nemuki Yosef, a famous Rishon, explains this, his position in the previous sugya, and here the quote now from the Nemuki Yosef. And even though there's no kinyan here, there's only words, and we know that words you don't obligate. We should point it, as I said last week. A person gives a word, because of piety, you should honor it. Our question is legally. The answer is no, legally words are not an obligate. So why here is he legally obligated? Mishtabid law, the motzi, because Omaloi Hamalve, the lender can say to him, of course you have to pay the loan if I default. If not for you, I wouldn't have lent the money. So your words created a huge thing. I gave the money. That obligates you. Similarly, Masber Rabbeinu Gershom, another Rishon explains similarly, Rabbeinu Gershom B'Sefer Masechta, the end of the Masechta. Similar words, he says, the Motzi Amalei, because the lender can say to the Arev, when the time comes for the debt to be paid and the lender doesn't have, he says to the, as it were, to the guarantor, Ilav at linofik zuzah, mitachas yodek. I'm skipping the brackets because that's translation. If not for you, I wouldn't have given the money. I'm going to skip the next thing because that's in the ones in the Gemara. So we have two explanations. Two very different explanations why an Arev is obligated without a kinyan. What is he getting? Where is the tangible expression of his intent? And that certainly is going to obligate him. Explanation one is Rashi. What does he get? He gets the trust. He receives something very powerful. And that's enough. Oh, I got this trust. This is enough. He received that. In return, he gives his obligation. That's the view of Rashi. According to the Nemuki Yosef and Rabbeinu Gershom, had nothing to do with receiving trust. It's because you caused him to give the money. And you knowing that your words caused to give the money, obviously you meant this seriously, because if not for you, the money wouldn't be given. Therefore, you have to pay. You obviously meant, you need to know the question of intent. The point of the kinyan is he's got to be, we have to know that he's been moved such that he means it seriously. So here's a very beautiful explanation. Of course he means it seriously. Can't be otherwise because of his words. The guy gave the money. Can't later say, I was just talking. You were just talking. I'm out of pocket because of your talk. You know that your talk caused this. That obligates him.
Rabbi, they both sound to me like credibility. Like one is calling credibility trust, the other one is calling credibility a word. But to me, they both sound the same.
The second one is not credibility at all. The second one is, if not for your words, this emphasis, I hear what you're saying. What you're saying is, why would the lender give? Is because he trusts the order is going to pay. But that's not the issue. The issue is, I'm out of pocket because of you. You caused me to give $100, knowing, and you know that your words would cause that obviously you meant it seriously. That's the emphasis here. Huh? You could say reliance, but here the difference between the two views. The first view is the spotlight is on the guarantor. I got this person's trust. I received something, therefore obligated. The second explanation, the spotlight is the argument of the lender. It's the lender's argument that makes the artiv liable. If not for you, I wouldn't have given the money. That's the difference here. Let's go further. We'll see more words. So it comes up, we can explain in two very different ways. As the underpinning, there's a word for it, the legal construct. Why a guarantor, in this case, pre-loan, is obligated even without a kinyan. Aleph. We'll get more words in now, more explanation. One view is, this is the second view, that the order is not obligated not because he received any benefit, like the classic acquisition, I got this, therefore God That's Rashi. It's because his words caused the money to be given. The guarantor caused the lender to be out of pocket. And this can be, but we did learn the Gemara, but I'm not expecting you to remember the nuance of the language. But as it comes out from the simple reading of the Gemara, the obligation of a guarantor, not because he caused financial damage, it's not the financial damage. As if to say, this is a nuance here. The fact that he caused money should be given. Matila Olav as a chayiv places the obligation. We're not saying the lender's not saying you damaged me. Ella, what's the point here? This is the cause that brings to the shibud, again, the obligation, the real, not facetious, but real intent of obligation of the guarantor. Etzem ovda, he's standing there. And the fact, the lender is giving because of the order, and the guarantor is doing that. So right there, that indicates and this is the lenders are relying on this person. It's this moment now that obligates him that the guarantor is liable. In other words, it's not like there comes at the end of the loan. What they was pointing out here is a very significant point. It's not that the lender says like this, at the end, when the time of the loan comes up and the borrower doesn't pay, and now he's out of pocket, you caused me damage, pay. It's not at the end that it comes out that the guarantor is liable. It's the very beginning, because we want to get his intent. It's the very beginning at this moment. The intent, and again, as we said before, the guarantor, knowing that his words caused this act of the lender to lend the borrower, your words caused that. So because your words caused it, and you know your words caused that, then you mean those words seriously, because if your words don't make any difference, maybe you didn't mean it. But if your words make a difference, you mean it. So the words made a difference. Because of your words, he lent. It's not the end damage. It's on the ground right now, a real change that happened because of the words of the guarantor, and therefore, if knowing his words caused this, he obviously meant them. When would he argue it's facetious? Is because his words didn't actually cause a change on the ground like it does over here. That's one view. That's the view of who? The Talmud Yosef and Rabbi Gershom.
Yeah, but his words have obviously credibility.
Right.
His credibility has a value. His value in turn creates a level of
Okay,
trust.
okay.
So I'm not understanding how, I don't see the difference. I understand, it's just the
Understand
word,
it
the
better.
very word
That's
changed the
it.
balance of scale. That's it, his value, he has a value added to the initial person he's loaning the money to allow the lender to give the money.
Okay, I can't explain it better. They're very, very different. One is what he's causing on the ground. The other is the benefit that he gets. It's very different. Beis, the second one. Out of mishtabed, why does the guarantor become obligated? Because of the benefit that he got, I received, the trust. The benefit that I got, that on my word, the money was lent. And he puts in italics so that we see the stark difference between the two views. Because the guarantor is receiving a benefit. That's not the view of the Mekor Yosef. And this receipt is just as if he picked up something. You got something. Because of his words, that's why it's not facetious, it's not an asmach in the words of the Gemara, but it's a real obligation. Now the difference will be, the difference between these two very different explanations will be the difference in the case of the strangulation. Maybe that'll be clear for you, Elsa. In the case of being strangled. If what makes the guarantor obligated is because on my word the money was given, when he says leave him because he's being strangled, because of my words you gave the money. I didn't cause you to lose any money. I didn't cause you to put your hand in your pocket and take it. You did this before I came along. Well, he's klum. At the bottom of the page, the lender did not give money to the borrower because out of the words of the guarantor. Therefore, there isn't so much, we do not see in the words of the guarantor that he's actually, we have no indication that he's actually obligating himself, because it wasn't because him alone ever happened. And therefore, just saying that doesn't obligate him. So we need to have another indication that he means it. If in this case of the strangulation, the Levi comes and says, and now he picks up Levi's thing, now he's showing that he's paying. Why? Because we're missing the whole what? The whole contract of the loan based on the words of the guarantor. Who's this opinion? That's the opinion of the Talmud Bavli. But the second opinion, the second view, but if, like the words of Rashi, that why is the guarantor obligated? Because he received something. What did he receive? I received this person's trust. That's a very, very tangible thing because of my word he gave. He received something here also. In the case of the strangulation, when Levi comes along and says, leave him, I'll pay, he's obligated because why? He got something. As we said before, what did he do? He received the benefit. The guy's not being strangled. So he got a tremendous benefit. He got the benefit. Therefore, it's obligated. This makes it very clear. Now we understand the argument that was giving us the foundation. Why the Babylonian Talmud? This is all Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Why the Babylonian Talmud says that the only time that in the case on the street, does the order become obligated because he holds that the shibud, like Rashi, that the shibud of the order is because of a benefit. Did he get a benefit? Yes, on my word, he stopped strangling. But the Jerusalem Talmud says, no, if it doesn't make a kinyan, there's nothing here. Because the Jerusalem Talmud is the position of Rashi. And what? Why is a person, when does he become what causes him to become a guarantor? Because in his word, the money went. In this case, on his word, the money did not go. He was not there for it. All right? Does that make it clearer now? Yep. Elsa, is it clearer? Now we see in the case of the strangulation, we can see the difference. The critical question is, did the guarantor get something? According to Babylonian Talmud, it's not the issue. It's not if he got something. This is the question. Do the guarantor's words cause the loan? That's the issue. According to the Jerusalem Talmud, the issue is not that. The issue is, does the guarantor receive something? In a normal case, yes, he gets trust. And then what does he get here in the case of the strangulation? On his word, this guy doesn't strangle. So he's a recipient of a benefit. Therefore, that's enough to really obligate him. So very different views and a practical difference. Now continuing, Dalit, chapter 4. The Rabbi elaborates. The fees yesh loimar. If you're allowed to give up, we can explain. Shalkach. I kind of all said this, but we'll see it in the text now. Bavli. Understand the difference between the Babylonians, Talmud Bavli's conclusion. In the case of strangulation, the guarantor has to make a kinyan. Whereas the Talmud Yerushalmi ain't said a kinyan. No need for a kinyan. We're repeating what I just said. The Babylonian Talmud Shita is Kipir Shabbein Gershon, or Baal Mukhe Yosef. Like a Ben Gershon and Mukhe Yosef, quote, because of the benefit. So they say the benefit, that is not enough. The benefit that he trusts him is not enough. Yeah, I said the opposite before. And Mukhe Yosef and Rabbi Rashi is different, yeah. So Rabbi Gershom and Mukhe Yosef say that receiving benefit is not enough to obligate him. It can still be considered like an achsmachta. Smachta means said facetiously, makes himself look good. This benefit, this benefit alone, that I'm trusted, they say, it's not enough to make, this is the Bavli, to make the Orev obligated. What causes the obligation? The fact that its words cause the money to go from Reuven to Shimon. That the lenders, based on the words of the Orev, actually gives the money. And he's going to be out of pocket at the end if the guy doesn't pay. In the case of strangulation, he didn't cause him to give him the money in the first place. So the fact that he says, leave him, I'll pay, means absolutely nothing. And Kaima Godim L'Shibur doesn't make him obligated to pay. In order for us to know, does he really mean to be an Orev? You've got to make a kinyan. You've got to receive something. You've got to acquire that handkerchief. That's the opinion of who? The Bavli. That's the Talmud Yerushalmi, but the view of the Talmud Yerushalmi is no. What causes a guarantor is not because I caused this guy to take money out of his pocket and to give that guy. My words had this effect. No, it's about what I got. The benefit to come home, I've been trusted, I received this goodwill. I got that. In return, I respond with my obligation. And he also, in the case of the strangulation, he got something because on his word, the guy stopped strangling. Now, let's turn the page because this is a nuance in the thing. Now go to page 175. We'd have to go through the words of the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, to get all of that. Let's go now to page 175, chapter 5. We're not going to skip anymore because that was all my push. So what comes out? We got to Talmud. I want to use the Hebrew terms. Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi. You tell me what? So Talmud Bavli says, is a kinyan required in the case of the Chanuk? The answer is yes. Talmud Yerushalmi, is the kinyan required? No. Talmud Bavli is of the view is that what causes the order to be obligated is because on his word the money was given. Talmud Yerushalmi is of the view is what causes an order to be obligated because of benefit that he received. Is there benefit in the case of the strangulation? Yes. Therefore he's liable. Now we're going to explain this. We clear? Everybody got that? Yeah? Yes? That's the facts on the ground. Now to explain it deeper. The Rebbe is going to explain why the Babylonian Talmud has this view, why the Jerusalem Talmud has the other view. It's got to do with Babylon and Jerusalem. Aha! This is beautiful. Israel engenders one perception. Babylon, which is lower, engenders another reality. Let's see perception, but reality. Halachically, let's see this incredible insight in the end, the light of Hasidus, but let's begin our journey. We're going to explain what you said before. The whole distinction in the two views of what makes a person an Arev is really rooted. The foundation is what nurtures these two realities is whether you live in Babylon and Eretz Yisrael. Now, why is a guarantor obligated? It's dependent. It all depends on people. We want to know what's the whole question here? You want to know, is this meant facetiously or is he really obligating himself? So it all depends on what? On people's attitude. For example, we find in Allah, if it's a locale, wherever that happens to be, that the business people, like in the Diamond District, whatever it is, they have their ways of obligating. So the halacha is that if business people obligate themselves without kinyan, and their custom is universally, everybody, this is the code in this particular locale, that even if it comes after a loan, but everybody conducts themselves, if that's the way they conduct themselves, that's the way they conduct themselves. And if you live in that locale, you can't say later, no, I was just facetious. If everybody does it. So in halacha, there is such a thing. In halacha, the custom of the locale dictates the halachic legal obligations. You cannot argue, I didn't mean it, and I'm not obligated, I just said it, if that's the way everybody conducts themselves there. So what it's bringing out, that locale makes a difference. Now we're going to look into the locale of Babylon, Bavli and Yerushalmi. This difference between the Bavli and Yerushalmi totally bedas me Adam. It all depends on what's in his mind. Did he mean this or not? This results because there's different locales. How so? Let's begin. Nama beGemara, this says in the Gemara Sanhedrin. She'etzem kiyum ha'arvos bein Yisrael. This idea that one Jew is responsible for the other. That's the issue here. Shehudi echad arav lechavedoi, that one person is obligated for the other. Noitza, when was this formed? Kasher ovru b'nei Yisrael hasayarden, only when the Yidden crossed the Jordan and went into Israel. That's when we became a people. One united people. This identity is forged when? Only when we came into Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, the Gemara says, the pasuk says that if someone will do sins in secret, idolatry in secret, and people don't know about it, the community will be collectively punished, even for sins done in secret. That only happens once they enter the Eretz Yisrael. This collective responsibility, not before. The Rogatshov explains, since Yidden are one species, not individuals somehow connected, but with one identity. Therefore, what someone does, even if this happens in the privacy, they're secretly serving idols, we're all responsible, because if we were really expressing our unity and our oneness, that would not happen. So we all bear responsibility. If someone in our community has fallen off, it's all our fault, because we are one people. We're not just neighbors living in the same locale. We're not just citizens of the same country. We are one identity. When does this happen? Only in Eretz Yisrael. If we're not living in Eretz Yisrael, Sha'az ein kayemis arvos, then this idea of being one and this responsibility for what someone else is doing doesn't exist. I'm responsible for me. Only in Eretz Yisrael to become one. We'll continue. Okay, continue next week. In contrast to Babylon, which is outside Israel, I'll just read this inside. The idea of having a multitude, one identity, doesn't exist outside Eretz Yisrael. Of course, the reason is obvious, because in the Holy Land unlocks a depth of the soul of every Jew, at which level we are one. Whereas living outside the Holy Land, where godliness is concealed, therefore our neshama is also concealed to a degree. And it's only at the core level that we are one. Hence, this idea of communal responsibility cannot be expected or demanded from the community as a whole in a place where, an unholy place, where the soul of every Yid is not revealed in the way it naturally is or should be in Eretz Yisrael. We'll continue all of this in greater depth, Mitzvah Shem from Sydney. So have a wonderful day. I'm going to run to Daven.
Have a great trip.
Thank you, Dave. Good seeing you. So tune in. For me, it's going to be Sunday night, 10:30 at night. Beautiful. Yeah.
Wow.
Have a safe trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Cherna class will be 12:15. Okay. That's something to do. It'll keep me busy night and day there. The morning shiurim, the night shiurim. We'll be busy for the 2 weeks ensconced, locked in our room. It's a quarantine. You can't go in the corridor. It's 15 days in the room. You may not go in the corridor. That's how strict they are there. And there's soldiers and police. Don't ask. But thank God we're going. It's all worth it to see my parents 2 weeks later in Melbourne. I can't even get to them for 15 days because the port of call is Sydney. I got to stay there. Then I can go on to Melbourne. Baruch Hashem.
You're a good son.
So I'll send you regards from Sydney, God willing, next week.
Have a great flight.
Thank you for your questions. Have a wonderful week.
Have a good flight.
Mordechai, how was the bris? Everything went well? Baruch Hashem. Baby's well? Okay.